Feudalism is the system that helped rebuild and save Europe after the collapse of the Roman Empire. It provided stability, it built a society on mutual obligation and merit. So was feudalism actually a great form of government? Let's talk about it. Throughout the 5th century AD, Roman authority was collapsing across the Roman Empire. First in 410 AD, when Emperor Honorius sent a letter to cities across Britain telling them to look to their own defenses. Also that year, after sacking Rome, the Visigoths moved throughout Gaul and settled near Toulouse, in modern-day France. In Hispania, several Germanic tribes, such as the Vandals, Alans, and Suebi, changed the complete power dynamics in that province and region. And then in 439, the Vandals started their own kingdom in North Africa after sacking Carthage. By 479 AD, when Romulus Augustulus was deposed by the Germanic leader Odoacer, the once united Europe was now a fragmented continent with little central power or authority. And the part that most people don't realize, the people that would live in post-Roman Europe knew that they were living in the shadows and the ruins of something great. Old forums were turned into farmland, aqueducts, baths, and sewers fell into disrepair. Trade became limited to the place that you lived in with no central economic power or force. And the worst part was the loss of knowledge. By the 6th century, it's estimated most people, even the nobles, were illiterate.
We have lost more knowledge than we ever had.
Imagine a world similar to our own, with all of our structure, economics, and culture that disappears almost overnight. Imagine a world in 100 years from now where the United States is no longer one united country, but rather hundreds of small areas with no central government, taxes, utilities, structure, or even education. Knowing that your ancestors once knew knowledge that you can't even fathom. That is basically what we are talking about here when we look at Europe in the early medieval period after the fall of Rome. So now, how did feudalism bring order to this world and build back what was once lost? Well, first let's define feudalism. The common definition for feudalism is as follows: the dominant social system in medieval Europe in which the nobility held lands from the crown in exchange for military service, and vassals were in turn tenants of those nobles, while the peasants or serfs were obliged to live on their lord's land and give him homage, labor, and a share of the produce in exchange for military protection. One quick side note, feudalism wasn't just a government system, but it was a societal, class system, economics, all of that. Basically, feudalism is where a king or ruler would give land to a noble who would then have peasants live and farm on that land. All of this in exchange for military service, going both ways. And in some cases, there could be even multiple levels of this, from a king to a noble to another noble to whatever, going down. But the whole premise and cause of feudalism comes from two main things. First, the decline of some sort of central power. And the second is the need for a military or warrior class. When you lack the ability to form a standing army to protect your resources and people, what are you supposed to do? Well, during this time of early medieval Europe, the most powerful military tool was heavy cavalry. And these troops were not cheap. They required land and wealth to maintain. So if you are a ruler that needs to maintain and protect your borders, you give your knights or warriors land for them to cultivate and build wealth. In exchange, then, they're able to fund their own gear, fund their horses, get their armor, bring some buddies along with them for more troops, and help you out. And as the Roman Empire started declining, we first started to see what we can call as proto-feudalism, which I'm going to do a whole nother video on in the future. But basically, you had local elites who had to rely on their own protection because Rome's power was waning. So small farmers would pledge their loyalty to them in exchange for safety. Basically, early forms of feudalism. So feudalism really starts to take root during the 6th, 7th, and 8th centuries in Gaul under the Merovingian Frankish rulers. Rulers like Charles Martel would grant lands to their nobles who would then be able to use that income from the lands to build armies. And by the 10th century, feudalism was pretty much everywhere in Europe. And it was getting really complicated with all the rules, classes, all of that. And you were having these marriages between different noble families, and you could have people from northern Germany, for example, end up ruling in southern Italy. But by the 15th century, feudalism was starting to disappear across Europe as powers began centralizing into true, real kingdoms with standing armies. And things like the Black Death and gunpowder helped expedite this process. So, is feudalism a good form of government? I think so. Here's why. Feudalism provides local stability. In a chaotic, fragmented world, this is an absolute necessity. Instead of waiting for orders from a distant capital, every region had a lord who could make decisions instantly. Justice, defense, and food production all happened at this local level. And feudalism is built on the idea of mutual obligation, not exploitation. Lords provided protection and justice, vassals provided that military service to their lord, and serfs then would work that land and had rights to protection and subsistence in return. With this, feudalism creates a merit-based warrior society. Feudal Europe didn't have any professional armies or mass conscriptions. It had a class of warriors who earned their status through loyalty and skill. A common man could rise sometimes through bravery and service and oath to become a knight. Feudalism provided this economic stability that hadn't been seen for a while, and that people didn't rely on these fragile trade networks or complex currency systems. It was built around land and local production, which meant it could survive plagues, invasions, or the total breakdown of international trade. When the Roman Empire collapsed under the weight of bureaucracy and cost, feudalism thrived because it was simple and self-sustaining. And lastly, it provided moral cohesion. Feudalism's worldview made sense to people. Everyone had a role, ordained by God, and everyone was connected by loyalty and obligation to one another. It provided meaning, not just governance. So think about this. Our modern world runs on contracts, not loyalty, not obligation. We work for faceless corporations and governments that have no personal obligation to us. Us as humans crave these human personal relationships and connections. And in a feudal society, it goes both ways. You are obligated to help your lord, and they then are obligated to help you. They derive their power from their people's support. Today, we celebrate our personal freedoms at the cost of our mutual duty to one another. Feudalism reminds people that freedom comes with obligation, that every person has a place and responsibility to one another. Or what about the seat of power? Would you rather have someone hundreds of miles away from you governing and making decisions about your life, or someone in your own town that you can appeal to? We see people complaining about meaning all the time in our modern world. In a feudal society, the church gave it meaning. Every social rank had a purpose. People understood their role in the grand order of things. In a sense, it boils down to this. Is a centralized government better than a decentralized one? It's a matter of personal opinion, obviously. So could feudalism work today, or are we already living in a neo-feudal society? Who knows? Just my thoughts. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Kind of interested to read about and learn about feudalism. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you like this kind of video? What do you think about feudalism? What do you think about government as a whole? Let me know down below in the comments. If you like this video, subscribe. But thanks for watching. See ya.